Huge fight over at the Barclays Center in Brooklyn, New York this weekend as former undisputed lightweight and current WBC 140-pound champ Devin Haney looks to defend his belt against, probably the greatest rival of his young career so far, Ryan Garcia, the man who handed him 3 losses back in the amateur days. So it really does set up an interesting clash. A lot of the main talking points around this fight, for obvious reasons, are centered around Ryan Garcia's, apparent mental health concerns. He's been tweeting about being kidnapped at Bohemian Grove, potential future earthquakes in LA, and so on. And it has given potential backers here, despite, his impressive resume to date. We got to remember that this is a fighter in Garcia who's only lost once across his career so far. That coming against Gervonta Davis last year. But Garcia could well make the case that he was weight trained for that fight, along with him having an 83.3% KO percentage as well. So those issues, despite his, solid resume, have fueled a move in this line that has seen a massive jump from the opener plus 360 on Ryan Garcia when this fight was first announced, all the way up to the current line of plus 580. That's a huge, huge move. So, all those tweets, all those Instagram posts that Garcia has been putting out have definitely given some backers in the market some cause for concern ahead of this one. Devin Haney has stated, however, that he believes it's all an act from Garcia, all to lead him into a full sense of security, so to speak. So whatever the case for me, it hardly separates the fact that Devin Haney is the far more, technically proficient of these two fighters coming in here on Saturday night. In their recent face-to-face meeting over on DAZN, Haney made some, valid criticisms of Ryan Garcia's career up to this point, from a technical standpoint. He said that when they first met in the amateurs, Ryan Garcia, pretty much beat him up, gave him a standing 8 count in that first fight, won easy. But as the series wore on, these two fighters had 6 fights between them, and Haney started to improve. It was actually Haney that ended up giving Garcia the standing 8 count, by the time of their final fight, something, Garcia denies admittedly, but nonetheless, Haney is adamant about. So the criticism remains nonetheless. Ryan Garcia's hands are fast. His left hook is lethal. And that's simply been enough for him up to this point of his career to get the job done. But, it is a fair criticism, I should say, to say he's developed little else beyond that. We saw him struggle immensely in his last fight against Oscar Duarte back in December. I thought the referee was extremely lenient in regards to Garcia, continuing to almost show his full back to Duarte in that fight, when attempting that shoulder roll of his. And he looked really uncomfortable being put under pressure from Duarte in that fight with, the crowd chanting Duarte's name as well. Is that something Ryan Garcia will face here, an offensive juggernaut of a fighter like Duarte? No, we know how Devin Haney likes to fight. He's long range, utilizes the jab and so on. But it still goes to highlight just how vulnerable Ryan Garcia is when he's being put on the back foot in fights. That said, still didn't change the outcome in that fight. One shot is all it took from Garcia to close the show. Garcia only needs to be right once here, and we've already seen Haney get wobbled. So if Ryan can connect here flush, it could well spell curtains for Haney in this one. He does have that kind of power. So where exactly do I see the value here on Saturday night? Before I get into a best bet, I just want to mention WagerTalk's 10 days for the cost of 7 deal going on right now over on site. That pretty much does exactly what it says on the tin. Pick up a 7-day all-access pass from the handicapper of your choice and get an additional 3 days added on at absolutely no extra cost, no coupon code needed either. So make sure and lock that in before it expires on Monday, April 22nd. Return to the best bet. I'm going to take Devin Haney in this one to win by stoppage at a massive plus 240 as the value play in this one. We saw in Haney's last fight against Regis Prograis back in December that, the extra weight that Haney has been put on at 140 has really helped him sit down his punches a lot more. He was intent on stepping into his shots, a lot more in that fight. He caught Prograis with some really well-worked uppercuts on the inside and obviously put him down with a monster straight right hand as well. So it's clearly something Haney has been working on in the gym over his last few fights, especially since the move up to junior welterweight as well. And I think a large part of that has been ticket sales. They haven't been great for Haney across his career so far. He's not the star that he should be, being an undefeated former undisputed champion as well. So I'm guessing his team want to inject some excitement into the fights. We've seen Shakur Stevenson struggle in this regard as well, despite, how vastly talented both of these fighters are. It hasn't helped them. Low ticket sales, a perceived lack of excitement from both fighters. People want to see action in fights, which is one of the reasons Gervonta Davis is such a main attraction, such a star. So it's clear from that Prograis fight that this is something Haney's team has decided to work on. in his move up to 140, generate that power, try and get more excitement in the ring, bring in fans. The other factor for potential Haney stoppage in this one is the weight issue for Garcia. Numerous people have already stated in the run-up to this fight that Garcia looks heavy for the weight. Even Devin Haney stated so. So, while Garcia's trying to shut down those rumors in the media, he says everything's fine, there's going to be no issue come weigh-in. If that is indeed the case and he is heavy, that's another huge concern for Garcia ahead of this one. We've already seen Garcia in his weight-trained form back in the Gervonta Davis fight last year. He looked incredibly brittle to the body against Davis's shots. Garcia looked visibly hurt, wincing at times well before that stoppage, ended the fight. And while there is an extra 5 pounds added on here for him, should he be forced to drastically cut weight yet again in order to make weight for this one, I'm fully expecting Devin Haney to start following that Tank Davis blueprint here, start winging shots downstairs to the body. Because even at the best of times, Ryan Garcia fights way too upright in fights. He leaves that body, vastly underprotected. So I'm expecting, those Devin Haney stab jabs downstairs to start paying dividends, as the fight wears on. Finally, whether those mental health issues are true or not, Ryan Garcia seems a lot more fired up than usual for this fight. This seems almost personal for him. He said multiple times already that he's going to walk straight in there and start hunting Haney down from the first bell. I don't believe it's all bluster either. I certainly don't expect him to simply, plod around the ring and be content to eat shots like Regis Prograis was. So I do expect a war mentality from Ryan Garcia in this fight. And if that's going to be the case, the chances of him walking onto something big in return from Haney, increases fairly dramatically. So I think with Haney's newfound focus on offense, Garcia's potential weight concerns ahead of this one, along, with all of the social media antics as well, I believe the value play in this one is to take Haney to get the stoppage at plus 240 on Saturday night. Could Haney get the decision here like he's done in all of his 8 previous fights? Of course, but at minus 170, I just don't see any value in that side of the place. So yeah, for me, Haney to win by KO, TKO at plus 240 on Saturday night. That's the side of the ledger I'll be on. Let me know your own thoughts and predictions down in the comment section below. And as always, thanks for taking the time to watch and best of luck on all your bets.